Very good afternoon. Once again, welcome you all back to the IoT e-learning. So in our previous video session, we started with module 4, data and analytics for IoT. So we'll have a small recap what all we discussed in our previous video session. So these were the contents that we discussed. We had an introduction about data analytics for IoT, where we understood the different data types, the structured versus unstructured data. We discussed about what we mean by structured data and unstructured data. Then we discussed about what is the data in motion versus data at rest, and we realized why this classification was needed, so that appropriate analytics tool can be applied to a particular type of data. So as there exist different types of data analytics tool, so which analytic tool is applicable to what type of data is to be realized. So that is what we discussed. So we did see the different types of data analysis: the descriptive, diagnostic, predictive and prescriptive, with example of a temperature sensor in a truck engine was discussed. Then we discussed about these 4 different data analysis with regard to complexity and value access, where the prescriptive analysis provides most of the value, but it is complex to implement the same. Then we did go through the challenges of IoT data analytics, from scaling problem to volatility of data to real-time analysis and the network analytics, and we came across tools like data analytics tools like NoSQL, which is applied for the data which are volatile type. Then we came across an example by Google, Microsoft and IBM for streaming analytics. Then the other tools called NetFlow and IPFix are used for network analytics. Today we will be discussing about machine learning and its contribution to IoT data. So machine learning is one of the core subjects in IoT. So it makes a sense of the data that is generated, because much of this data can appear incomprehensibly to our naked eyes, and specialized tools and algorithms are needed to find the relationship between the data that will lead us to new business insights. So that is why machine learning is the core part of our IoT. Machine learning is indeed central to IoT. The data collected by these smart objects needs to be analyzed, and intelligent actions need to be taken based upon these analysis. So usually performing this kind of operations manually is highly impossible. Hence we depend upon machines, and machines are needed to process such vast amount of information in a very quick and rapid manner. So machine learning, in fact, part of a larger set of technologies that are commonly grouped under artificial intelligence. So we might have heard about machine learning, deep learning, neural networks and convolutional networks. So all these are part of our AI. So AI includes any technology that allows a computing system to mimic human intelligence using any technique, from very advanced logic to just a basic if then else decision loop. So that is what we mean by artificial intelligence. Like if I take up a human brain, so if I take up a human brain, the human brain can identify the shape of a human being. If an image is given to a human to understand how he looks like, then our brain will make an analysis and will tell it is a human or not. Similar way, the data sets can be provided to the machine. The way our brain works can be provided to our machines, and our machines can learn to identify each of the object. So that is what machine learning is. Taking another example, say like for example, we can also take a smart vehicle. If it is parked in some area, now our smart vehicle can tell us the exact location where it has been parked. So that is our machine, or our smart vehicle or smart car is able to identify its location through some mechanism like global positioning system, and this location is shared to us to easily track where we have parked our vehicle. So these are the two simple examples which will describe what basically machine learning is. So I told you machine learning is part of our artificial intelligence. So apart from machine learning, we have deep learning in artificial intelligence. Then we have neural networks. I told you the way the brain works, the same sort of mechanism can be implemented using different algorithms using neural networks, and we have convolutional networks as well. All these are part of artificial intelligence. We will be particularly looking at the machine learning part. So machine learning is broadly classified into supervised and unsupervised learning. So here in supervised learning, the machines are trained with some input that are already collected, and we call this data as training set. So an algorithm is used to determine common parameters and common differences between the objects or images, and then the comparison is usually done at the scale of the entire image or pixel by pixel. So each new image can be compared to the set of known good images, and a deviation can be calculated to determine how different the image is from the average human image, and therefore the probability that is shown can predict whether it is human figure or not. So we call this as classification, or this process is called as classification. We collect different form of human images and we make the a training set available to this machine. With the training set, the machine compares each of these and then predicts whether it's a human figure or not. We call this as a process called classification. Similarly, the machine can usually be tested with unlabeled pictures, and we call this as validation or test set. So in the same supervised learning only, where machine can be given with some unlabeled pictures, and we call this as validation or the test set. So after training, the machine should be able to recognize human shapes. So before real field deployments, the machine is usually tested with unlabeled pictures. We call this as validation or test set, depending on the machine learning system used to verify the object. Similarly, when we train the machine with measured values, the machine can predict, say like for example, the speed of flow for a new and measured viscosity. So we call this as process is called regression. Say like for example, if if you take a oil flowing through a pipe in an oil and gas company, we can study the different flows or the different threshold of flows of this oil that is flowing through the pipes. We call this mechanism as regression. So basically, depending upon the speed of the oil that is flowing in the pipe, we can predict its viscosity, and we can be able to control the flow of the oil through the pipelines. So such mechanism is called as regression, and particularly these values are unlike our what images. So in images we have curves or straight lines, but here the values are not any curves or straight lines, rather they are some mathematical parameters or some numeric values. So we call this mechanism as regression. So there are two aspects in supervised learning. One that is called as classification, the other one is the regression. These are the supervised learning aspects. Then coming down to the next classification, we call this as unsupervised learning. So supervised learning is not the best method for machine to help with human decision in all cases. So if I take up a automobile manufacturing setup where thousands of engines are manufactured on a day-by-day basis, and each of the engine cannot be introspected with the supervised learning, which is a very time consuming aspect. Hence another approach can be used, which is called as unsupervised learning. So that is, we can group the engines and we can study their behavior. Say like for example, a sound of an engine or the pressure, temperature can be parameters used to tell whether the engine is working fine or not. So that is, we can group all the engines together with the same sound or the pressure or temperature, and we can group the unlikely parts, those who typically are varying in sound, pressure and temperature. So this type of machine learning is called as unsupervised learning. So here you can see we can use a k-means clustering to find the mean values for a group of engines. So mean value can be for a temperature or for a frequency of the sound. Here you can see how the engines can be grouped and can be used to detect the faulty parts of the engine. We call this as unsupervised learning. So there will occasionally be an engine in the group that displays an unusual characteristics, like might be small change in the temperature or might be small change. So that would result us in doubting this functioning of the engine. So we can tell that this engine has some malfunction and we can separate out this engine. So what we do is, in unsupervised learning, so rather than going for individual test of engine, group of engines are brought together and an analysis is made over, and the separate odd ones are kept separate apart for further investigation. So we call this as unsupervised learning, which basically use some k-means clustering approach. Next, so now we learnt about what is machine learning and its types, supervised and unsupervised learning. I took up an example of both of what is a supervised and unsupervised So next part of our machine learning is the neural network. Machine learning was already proposed during 1980s, but it couldn't sustain because during those times computing mechanisms or the computing hardware systems were much costlier comparatively to what today we have. Hence it faded away in 1980s, but today it is gaining much of interest because today's computing system are becoming much cheaper and cheaper. Neural networks are the machine learning methods that mimic the way human brain works. So I gave an example. If I give a man to identify a human figure, so our brain gets activated and it identifies colors, movements and facial expressions, and our brain tells whether it is human or not. Similarly, mimicking the actions of human brain is nothing but the neural network. So a neural network processing human image recognition may have two units. In first layer, it determines whether the image has some straight lines and sharp angles, and which will differentiate between a human and a vehicle, because human doesn't have any straight line and a sharp angles. So we can clearly identify whether it's a human object or a vehicle. If I take up, say, like for example, if we take up an underground mining, so if some activity is going on in an underground mining in depth, and if we find some human beings, we can stop an unusual, say like excavation. So there can be system implemented to identify whether there are human beings in the process, so that they can be removed from that location, and the machine can go ahead with the excavation. So that is the machines, the surveillance cameras can identify and differentiate who is a human and a vehicle to carry forward the process. Then a second layer may look for different features. So like for example, a further investigation can be made to identify whether a face, arm and all. So then a third layer can compare the image of various, say like animals, and then to human, and then tell whether it is a human or not. Also we call this as deeper learning when we get into layer by layer concept of analysis. So this is what we call it as the neural networks. So the great efficiency of neural networks is that each unit processes a simple test, and therefore computation is quite fast. So when the results of the layer is fed into the another layer, the process is called as deep learning. Deep because the learning process has more than a single layer. So here we can see how we can identify or recognize a dog in a picture by layer. One layer feeds some data to a next higher layer, and then to a top layer, and then finally the system identifies whether it is the given object or not. So this is a good example of how a neural network functions. Now next let us look at the machine learning and getting intelligence from big data. There are practically two broad subgroups. One is called as local learning, the other one is called as remote learning. In local learning, the data is collected and processed locally, like for example at the sensor level itself, or what we call it as at the thing level, or at the edge level itself, or at the gateway level itself. The data is gathered there only, and the analysis is made at the local level. We call this as local learning. Then we have the second subgroup of ML operations called as remote learning. So here the data is collected and sent to some central computing unit, basically a data center, where the data center processes these data remotely. Hence we call this as remote learning. So there are two broad subgroups. One is local learning, the other one is the remote learning. And our machine learning in IoT basically revolves around 4 domains. Let us understand the 4 important domains where our machine learning revolves around. One is called monitoring, second one the behavior control, the third one operations optimization, and the last one self-healing and self-optimizing. So let's take up the first one, monitoring. So smart objects monitor the environment where they operate. So the data is processed to better understand the condition of the operations. So these conditions refer to external factors like temperature or humidity, or say like for example the pressure in a pump or the oil flowing in a pipe, or sometimes how much of carbon dioxide is generated in a mine so that a proper oxygen is given. So this is nothing but the monitoring aspect. So machine learning can be used to monitor our physical phenomena, so to detect an early failure or to better evaluate the environment. So this we call it as the monitoring domain. The other domain is called as behavior control. So monitoring commonly works in conjunction with behavior control. So when a given set of parameters reach a target threshold, say like for example in a mine, if we find that the carbon dioxide level is growing, this can tell the system that there is a need for ventilation, there is a need for oxygen to be supplied. So an alarm can be raised so that a flow of fresh air can be pushed into the mine tunnels for human to breathe. So we call this as behavior control. Third category is operations and optimization. So behavior control typically aims to take some corrective actions based on the thresholds. However, analyzing data will lead us to some changes that improves the overall process. Say like for example, if I take up a water purification plant in a smart city, where we can implement a system to monitor the efficiency of the purification process based on which chemical is used, at what temperature, and associated to what steering mechanism. So now we can better understand the whole of the process of this water purification. So our neural networks can have a combination of all these units, from our what chemicals used to the temperatures and to the steering mechanisms, and can estimate the best chemical and the best steering mix up, and can target the better air temperature. So this intelligence can help the plant reduce its consumption of chemicals while still operating at the same purification levels. So this is what I call it as operations optimization. So now our machine learning can dictate how a system can be better improved by studying in depth of the existing system. The fourth domain is self-healing and self-optimization. and this is the fast developing aspect of deeper learning. So the machine learning, which basically performs this monitoring and operations optimizations, also look at another aspect of self heal and self optimization. Say, like for example, if a machine can understand why there is a variation in its performance, say like if I take up a same truck engine that I discussed in previous session, if a truck engine can identify that there is some variation in its functioning, it can suggest for a change in the cooling system either by alarming, or it can suggest there is a wear and tear in the components and needs a replacement immediately, or to an level that engine itself can now order for a replacement of a component. That is how our today's vehicle have become very intelligent. So we call this mechanism as nothing but self-healing and self-optimizing. So once again, I would like to repeat all the 4 important domains that our machine learning revolves. One is monitoring. Monitoring is nothing but the reading the physical phenomena like what temperature, humidity and the presence of carbon dioxide, to many other factors like the oil flowing in the pipe and the pressure, amount of pressure generated by the pumps. All this could be monitoring. Then the behavior control is based upon this monitoring we can control the behavior of the system, like if oil flow is too high in a pipe, then we can control the oil flow in the pipe. So that is what I mean by behavior control. Or say like for example, if there is in a mine, if a human is identified by a surveillance camera, then it can tell that an alarm should be raised and further excavation can be stopped because there are presence of human in the mine. Similarly, we looked at the operation optimizations by taking up an example of a water purification. So we can optimize our operations so that how better we can improve our system. So that is which chemical can be used, or so that how we can reduce the amount of chemical for water purification. This is operation optimization. And finally, I told you about self-healing and today's self-optimizing. Today's systems have become self-healing and self-optimization, where they learn through the statistical data and they understand that there is a rupture in the system that can be self-healed and self-optimized. So I'll conclude here. I'll continue in the next session with big data analytics tools and technology. Thank you so much.